Okay, this is lesson 6.2, which talks about slope-intercept form. So in the last lesson, we talked about rate of change and how if you have a straight line, that means it has a constant rate of change. And that constant rate of change means that it represents a linear relationship. And so this right here is line represents a linear relationship, and we actually call this the parent function of a linear relationship, and it's represented with y equals x. And you can think about it as the parent function is kind of where all linear relationships start from this one. This is the most basic. And as you look at this, you should notice, okay, the y-intercept is at 0, 0. So that also makes it a direct variation. And also that our slope, when we calculate the slope, we rise 1, run 1. So our slope is 1. So we write it y equals x, which is like y equals 1x plus 0, but of course we don't have to put the 1x or the 0. So this is the linear relationship parent function, the most basic linear relationship you can find. Slope of 1, y-intercept of 0. In this chapter, we're going to talk about 3 different ways you can write equations for linear functions, and the first one we're going to talk about is this slope-intercept form. Which is y equals mx plus b. M is your slope, b is your y-intercept. So if we found out that, okay, I have a slope of -5 and a y-intercept of 1, we would write that as y equals -5x plus 1. And that's slope-intercept form. So go ahead and let's look at quick check 2. Which is on page 318 in your book. Just go ahead and hit pause and then do quick check 2. Okay, welcome back. So quick check 2 just says write an equation of a line with a slope m equals 2/5 and y-intercept of b equals -1. So you should have just had y equals 2/5 x. And then you could write -1 or plus a -1. -1 is just simpler and cleaner, and so I would suggest doing that. But again, it's one of those things, remember, it's slope-intercept form. It's easy to remember because it's slope and then y-intercept, slope-intercept form. Okay, so graphing in slope-intercept form. When you graph linear equations, you could just get some points, and it's any 2 points will make a straight line. So you really only need to graph 2 points when you have a when you're graphing a linear relationship. But we're going to talk about a shortcut, and this is the shortcut when you're graphing anything in slope-intercept form. It's that you want to plot the y-intercept, make your triangles, and connect. So we're going to graph this first one, y equals 3x plus 2. So if you don't have graph paper, pause and go get some graph paper. Just follow along as I do this. You will need to graph one when we do quick check 4. So we have y equals 3x plus 2. So the way we're going to do this, the first thing I say is plot your y-intercept. So I'm going to go ahead and plot my y-intercept at 2. And then I look at my slope, which my slope here is 3. Now this is not a fraction, so I know that my slope is rise over run. So how do I turn that 3 into a fraction? Well, it's just 3 over 1. So I'm going to start at my y-intercept, and make sure you start at your y-intercept. That's the biggest mistake I see people make, is they go down here and they start at 0, 0, but you start at your y-intercept, and we're going to rise 3 and run 1. And you really just only need that 1 point to draw a straight line. You don't need to do more than that. Some people like to put an extra one in, but 2 points make a straight line. So I'll go ahead and get my 3-hole punch because it's the closest straight line. You should definitely use a ruler. And then you just take that and you connect them. And that's the graph of y equals 3x plus 2. It actually is a very fast way to do this, rather than just picking random points and plugging in and saying, oh, well, if x is 0, what would my y be? And plotting it that way. Just do it like this. So let's look at another one. So if I have y equals 2/3 x minus 1. So now what I'm going to do is draw my x and y axis, and first thing I do, plot my y-intercept, which my y-intercept here is not +1, it's -1. Now my slope is already in a fraction, so that's nice. It's one of the times when it's nice to have something in a fraction, because I already know my rise is going to be 2 and my run's going to be 3. So I start at my y-intercept and I rise 2, 1, 2, and run 3, 1, 2, 3. And then I go ahead and I connect. And that is my graph. It goes very quickly. So what I would like you to do is graph quick check 4, which is on page 319. You're going to graph on graph paper y equals 3/2 x minus 2. Okay, let's go ahead and check what you got there. So your y-intercept here should have been -2 and 3/2. I'll see some people that'll say, okay, well, 3/2, that's 1.5, so I'm going to rise 1.5 and run 1. Don't do that. It's a fraction. It's just work with that rise and run. So I'm going to rise 3, 1, 2, 3, and run 2. And draw my line. So that's what you should have had. Okay, that's it for this video. I don't have anything else. It's just slope-intercept form. It's one of the forms we're going to learn how to use that you can represent linear relationships. We'll talk about the other two later. So shortcut to graphing, and just know that your slope is always next to the x and the y-intercept is the one all by itself.